Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and we've got an excellent player, super cool guy, and someone who's not only been successful and excelled at one instrument, but at two instruments, which is really, I think, incredibly difficult. It's really hard to be great at any one thing, but to be great at two things. Plus, he writes, that's pretty accomplished. So we're with Paul Taylor. Paul began his professional career touring on the road in the 1982 rock sensation. Dude, you look pretty good for your age.
Thanks. I just turned 60.
Yeah, man, you look great. You got a hell of a lot more hair than I do. That's because you don't have any kids, I bet, right?
Right.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, man. The kids just suck everything out of you. He was touring on the road with the 1982 rock sensation Aldo Nova. And if y'all are of this age bracket like Paul and I, you remember Aldo's hit song Fantasy. That song went to number 3 on the charts, kept these guys on the road for quite a while. Paul then went to go on and play in bands like Alice Cooper, Winger with Steve Perry from Journey, Cinderella, John Waite, Tommy Shaw from Styx, and Nick Gilder. It's like a who's who of FM radio from my youth, man.
Yeah.
Paul wrote the top 10 hit Miles Away for Winger and a top 40 hit You Better Wait with Steve Perry for a solo record, which was called For the Love of Strange Medicine, which Paul also wrote 8 other songs. In 2004, Paul had a number 4 hit in Japan with Japan's pop star Naomi Amuro with a song called Shine More. He's written over 200 songs for TV, including the final main title for Sabrina the Teenage Witch. He's also placed songs in such movies as Las Vegas Vacation, Pushing Tin, The Seed of Chucky, The Forgotten, Bruno, and more. Dude, you did work with Bruno?
Yeah, which was horrifying after I saw it, but I ran out of the theater yeah. See, and especially where they used my song and they played it over and over, and it was yeah.
Which part of the movie was your song?
What's that? Oh, it was just another horrifyingly embarrassing scene like all of his movies, but yeah, it was you never know until you see it and go, wow. But you know what? I'm always happy to get a placement in anything TV or anything movie. And, it's all good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's great. See, I have the opposite perspective. I saw that movie in the theater with 2 teenage boys. So it was like it was no embarrassment. It was like they wanted to, they've since watched it on TV another 10 times. So every time they see it, you're getting a check, man. So good for you.
Yeah. No, it's still paying me.
Absolutely, man. Paul's currently living in Nashville, where he produces a lot of young up-and-coming artists, and he's touring on shows with Winger. Man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure.
Hey, how'd you first get hooked up with Aldo Nova, and were you playing keys or guitar on that tour?
I only played keys on that, and Aldo, for some reason, and people have asked me this, and now I can't really remember what brought him there. But Aldo's from Montreal, and for some reason, he came to San Francisco to put his band together, and he put this band together. And including a keyboard player. And at the time, I was, funny enough, actually down in Hayward. I'd moved down there from Santa Rosa, and I was trying to start a band with Troy Lucetta, the drummer of Tesla, and this guy named Dave Notary. It was 3 of us, and we were converting an old warehouse, into a practice place. And all of a sudden I get this call from 3 different people going, hey, and I had met Aldo that week because he was, walking around town with his tape under his arm and going, wow, this is my record and I'm putting a band together. And, of course we're all like, okay, whatever, But anyway, they said, hey, his keyboard player that he just got is not going to work out. And everyone had told him about you. And so I went down and we all set up in a room and played. And he goes, all right, you're it. And, I thought, okay, fine, who cares? But then I heard the stuff, the rest of the record. And the day I played, actually, there was a lot of record company people in there, and I thought, whoa, maybe this guy is serious, and there is a record. And but of course, none of us were prepared for it just taking off like it did.
That's so cool. And now Troy, I think, it lives in Nashville also, ironically, doesn't it?
Now he lives here as well. Yeah,
I thought so.
No, and me and him, that little band that we were trying to put together, the minute I took off with Aldo, I think Troy had already started doing some stuff with some of the Tesla guys. I think they were called City Kid back then. And so our little band idea quickly, got aborted, but we have remained great friends over the years. I love Troy a lot, and we over the years have done a lot of tours together too, so it's been fun.
That's really cool, man. What was it like playing on a tour in the early 80s, and when they had record label money, and like I'm sure there was no shortage of women or groupies or whatever your flavor was? I have to be politically correct now.
Right.
And what and what was the upside and the downside, if there's any, of having a tour of this magnitude for like your first go round?
Well, as much as it seemed like a huge tour, we were actually touring in station wagons. 2 station
Holy
wagons.
Crap.
And our first couple tours, I know we did at least one across Canada in the middle of winter in station wagons. I mean,
oh my God.
There was 2 times where we slid off the road, and I mean, we were opening for a band called Street Heart, which was a huge Canadian band, and really good. I just loved the band, but we were an opener. Even the single took off pretty quick. The first thing we actually did is, once I got in the band, the label guys, we rehearsed for the week. And then the manager came in and said, "Hey, you guys are going to LA to shoot a video." And of course, MTV didn't come out till 82, and this is in 81, November of 81. And we were all like, "What's a video?" And they're like, "Well, it's things for Showtime. They show little clips of bands in between things to, So we're like, "All right," but we'd never seen one, so we flew to LA, and we didn't know what we were supposed to do, and they just set us up on this one thing. We recorded Fantasy, and we did a video for the song Ball and Chain. And they said, "Hey, just act like you're playing." So that's what we did. Of course, they added, all the laser effects at the beginning of the Fantasy video, which was actually Lucasfilms that did that. And I remember us thinking how cool that looked. And now, of course, if you watch that video, it's the cheesiest effects you've ever seen in your life. But anyway, it was awesome. So that's what started. And then the next week we got informed that we were going out with Hall & Oates for 3 weeks. And I think we got out there, and it was awesome, especially for me, because I was a huge Hall & Oates fan. And a week and a half into it, our drummer, Billy Carmassi, who's Denny Carmassi from Hart's little brother, got chicken pox. And so we got quarantined off the tour.
Man.
And that was that. And, but, he recovered, and by then they had gotten us, the single had just taken off. And so the next thing we knew, they said, you're going out for a month with Blue Oyster Cult, which we did. And then we had a month with Sammy Hagar, which we got 2 weeks into that, and Sammy got really ill. So the remaining 2 weeks of that one got canceled. Typical stuff for tours. Stuff happens, but we ended up over the course of the year just touring with everybody. And it was an amazing first year, but it was, we weren't doing it the luxury tour in buses and all that. We were, because when a record first comes out and takes off, the first thing that happens is everybody starts getting paid back for, Aldo had recorded that in the Power Station with John Bon Jovi's uncle, Tony Bon Jovi, and there was, I'm sure he had a lot of expenses that he had to pay back. So.
Yeah. Those must have been pretty cool opening for Blue Oyster Cult, though. They were a massive band back that time.
Oh yeah. It was a lot of fun. And funny enough, on one of those shows, it was in New Jersey. The lineup was Dixie Dregs,
right?
Then us, then Blue Oyster Cult. So me and Rod, and that was the first time. I'm sure me and Rod had met. But of course they played, and then all of us in the Aldo band were standing there going, "We're going to follow that."
Yeah.
We all wanted to run for our station wagons.
Holy crap. Yeah. That's pretty scary. Wow. That's weird. Like you'd never see tours. I mean, I guess you do now. There's bands coming together in the festival stuff, but it was nice back in that day when, I remember going to the Garden and seeing like, Ted Nugent open up for Aerosmith. That's massive too. You don't see much of that anymore.
I saw some wild ones. I saw Bob Seger opening for Kiss in 1976 at the Cow Palace. And what other ones? Well, even on the Aldo thing, we did one show with 38 Special, Aldo, and Iron Maiden.
Who put?
What did they? You know what? I take that back. I think Iron Maiden actually opened the show. Then we opened the show. Then Iron Maiden. Then 38 Special headlined over Iron Maiden, which
that's
now
wild.
I just go, wow, that is incredible. But
yeah, that's a weird combo too to put Iron Maiden in there with that.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier it's hard enough to be successful at one thing, and you've really been successful as a guitarist, keyboard player, and a writer. So I have a few questions about that. The first question is basically about drive and ambition. And did you always have that kind of drive and ambition? And either way, where do you think it came from, and like what motivated you and continues to motivate you to be such a go-getter? It's
funny you should say that, because I actually have always kind of thought of myself as semi-lazy, but
but that's always the way, when you're a type
maybe it's
A.
just because my life has gone, for the most part, in a positive direction, and kind of things have flowed. I mean, of course, like everyone, I hit some years where all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, is this it? Am I done? And, like 97 to 2000 was just not good years for me. I just was really starting to go, wow, this might be the end of this road for me, and the music thing might be. And then all of a sudden in 2000, that's when I had the Sabrina thing, and Kip called and said, hey, Poison and Cinderella want us to go on tour again. And, there was just kind of this resurgence of stuff happened for me anyway. And it just kind of kept going. So
that's really good.
Playing both the guitar and keyboards and the writing thing. I mean, honestly, and I think for me, writing has always been the biggest love of everything I do. I'm reasonably good on guitar and reasonably good on keyboards. At least good enough to get the rock gig. That's what I always say. I wish I was way, way better on piano. I've gotten. It's been so much years of just writing and creating things. Like if someone says, hey, sit at the piano and play some stuff, I could kind of fake my way through something, but I would love to just be able to sit and play like a nice classical piece or something. And that's just something I never, despite my few efforts to kind of really get into studying and learning all that kind of stuff, I always get yanked away. I was in some very heavy duty lessons and really starting to finally accomplish that when I got the Steve Perry gig. And then it was 3 years with Steve, and Steve loves to get up at 5 a.m. and loves to get together and eat breakfast and talk so it wasn't uncommon for me to be out the door at 6:30 or 7 to go hang with Steve and talk about what we were going to do for the day, So I ended up having to quit those lessons because my teacher was finally like, hey, you're not practicing and this is not good for you or me. So,
yeah, but that's not a bad gig to have to get up at 6:30.
Well, I was going to say,
if you got to be hanging with some musician, Steve Perry is probably not a bad choice, It
was, some of the best musical times for me because, I'm a San Francisco boy and grew up listening to those guys, and his voice is epic. Whether you like it or not, I mean, he is one of the most unique, and just, and after spending, the 3 years working with him and writing, I mean, I really learned he just floats things over stuff, where like after I started trying to write with other people afterwards, everything seemed really wordy to me and complicated. And Steve just has a way of and he's just such a melody guy, really incredible.
Yeah, to have written that many hits is, almost statistically impossible. I mean, there's a few guys that have done it, but it's so, minuscule. It's really amazing if you look at that.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a tribute band here in town, and they call me sometimes when they play, and they're really, really good. And I just got up and jammed with them a couple weeks ago. But I of course, I sit and watch their show, and it's just a reminder of how many cool songs those guys had, including stuff that wasn't hits. I mean, the first album they did was almost like a fusion record, back when they had Ainsley Dunsbar and George Tickner and all that. I mean, just a whole different flavor of music, but. Anyway, it was cool.
That's good, man. Talk about, I'm going to go through some of these artists. Talk about how you wound up connected with them, how you got the gig basically, and if you have any cool or interesting stories about working with them, and what your role was. Did you play guitar or keys? Let's start with Kip Winger.
Well, Kip, I met because I got the Alice Cooper audition, and that was in, I think, when do we start with Alice? 88 or no, sorry, 86. And I got a call for that audition from some girl out of New York. This is kind of a weird story. I'd played with Aldo, and she had seen me on that tour somehow, and or we met, and she knew I played guitar and keys. But later on, I had produced this demo for, I got called to produce a demo for Vane, the glam band out of San Francisco.
Wow, I haven't heard that name. Wow, is that Jamie's band, right?
Yeah,
he's in Nashville too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so, so I got this. The band, they actually called me. Davey was my friend, and he's like, "Hey, we're doing some new songs. We want you to produce it." And I'm like, "You guys, I'm not a producer. I really hadn't done any recording. I just had gotten some stuff, a little DMX drum machine and a 8-track, but I wasn't very good at it. I mean, I thought my own stuff was sounding not very good. And they're like, "No, we love what you do. We love what you write." And they kept on me. So I finally just said, "Hey, let me give it a shot here." So I went and we did this demo, and I actually played guitar on some of the stuff. And actually my solo, I think, ended up on the record, or Jamie, I can't remember, but we did this thing, and it got sent. Kat Zerdowski, their manager, sent it all over the place. And that girl I had met in New York saw it and saw my name on, and she had been looking for me because they needed a guitar player, keyboard player that could sing for Alice, and they couldn't find anybody. And so she called me. She's like, "Oh my God, are you the guy that played in Aldo?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "We have been looking all over for you. I found you on this Vane demo." And I called Kat Zerdowski, and she gave me your number. And so it's because of that I got the Alice call. And so she said, "Look, we don't have anybody for this. If this is something you're interested in, you're the only guy we're going to audition. So, if you come down and are even remotely good, it's your gig, So
wow.
I've told the story before, but I drove down, they FedExed me some stuff. I learned like 6 songs, and I went down, and of course I got there super early to the studio, and I was sitting there, and Alice shows up first, and he's got his daughter with him. I guess they had been at the fair, who's, Calico, who's now in Pisto Blanco, who I love. And he walks up, and they'd been at the fair, and she's got little tinsel in her hair. And Alice comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, are you the guy auditioning for keys?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Does your name start with a K?" He goes, "Because I don't want another K. I've already got a Kip, a Ken, and a Kane." I go, "No, my name's Paul." And he goes, "You got the gig." That's and basically that was it too, because I mean, we went in, and he goes, "Do you know 18?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "All right, let's try 18. And halfway through it, he stopped. He goes, "You're it." He goes, "This is not, brain surgery."
Yeah.
He goes, "Dude, you're it." And I'm like, "Hey, I know more songs." He goes, "Nah." So easiest audition I ever got. And so it was back to your question. It was,
wow.
Meeting Kip the second or third day. And of course I was getting there early, and Kip had just gotten the gig a couple days before me, with Alice playing bass. And so I came in, and Kip was sitting on the floor with a little boombox. And I go, "Hey man." And he was playing some stuff in the background. I go, "Wow, that's pretty cool. What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, some stuff I wrote." And I'm like, "Really?" I go, "Man, that's cool stuff." And I go, who's singing?" And he goes, "Oh, it's me." And I'm like, "That's your voice?" I go, "Dude, you sing your butt off, So that led to me playing him some stuff. And he's like, "Oh man, this is really cool. We got to write when we hit the road." So me and him instantly just started writing. Our first song we wrote together was "State of Emergency," which was on the first record. And we wrote that in Sioux City, Iowa. We had a little Insonic keyboard, and we kind of sequenced it all out. And, it seems like a long time ago now, but
very cool.
Anyway, that was it. And, we've just, we're still going, man. Still, and he's like my brother at this point. We live a couple miles away from each other here in, no pun intended, in Nashville. Yeah. And I still do shows with the guys, and it's awesome.
That's so cool.
That's the coolest thing about our band. I mean, we're inseparable friends. This many years later. And now of course Johnny, the guy that took my place, John Roth, took my place in '92, and he's still in the band. So when I do it, we do it as a 5-piece now, and it's the funnest thing. We just laugh and just have the greatest time together. So if that's all anybody could say about their band a million years later is that you're all best friends, that's probably my biggest success,
Yeah, which is how you got started in music in the first place. So, which is really cool.
Right, exactly. And there's some bands out there that seem to forget that. Not a lot of them, though. A lot of the guys, we're out now, and the 80s thing has kind of found its new thing, and all the cruises, and we're all doing festivals together. And you know what? Everybody's really settled down. Even some of the guys that we used to think had big attitude problems, and probably did, and we probably all did a little bit, but everybody's really mellowed out, and we're all like one big family now, So that's been a neat thing that's happened.
That's really cool. And you know what I thought was cool too? When Alice said to you, "Hey, this isn't brain surgery." There was no ego about his own stuff. Like, it is what it is.
Alice is the best guy you could ever work with. Funny, super smart. As I've told people, he's an amazing poker player. That's the one thing you got to know when you join his band. You're not going to have your per diem because he takes it. I mean, the guy. We made him switch seats. We made him switch decks. And he's like, you know why you guys don't win? Because you care. That's what he said. I remember saying that one day. I'm like, oh, man.
That's funny, man. Really good story. Tommy Shaw.
Yeah.
How'd you get the gig with him, and any cool stories?
Well, I only played for a month with Tommy. And funny enough, Tommy is my neighbor on the other side about a mile and a half from me now.
Holy crap. That's too funny.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've only run into him once here in Nashville. And I think I've ran into him twice in airports in other cities. Because, Tommy is a workaholic. He's always out on the road. But super guy. We just had a blast. It was a very quick thing. He caught me at the House of Blues on one of, I think, the last 2 or 3 shows I was doing with Alice Cooper on this one tour. And he came backstage and he's like, "Hey, I heard your guys' tour is wrapping up." And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Dude, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. I could really use a guy like you that plays keys and guitar and sings. Would you be interested? It's a month opening for Peter Frampton and Skinner." And I said, "Oh my God, sure." So he goes, "I just got a bass player." He goes, "I'm using Michael Cardelloni on drums." So we threw it together. We rehearsed for 1 week and hit the road for just 1 month for his 7 Deadly Zens tour for his solo record. And, we did play a couple Styx songs, and it was an absolute blast. He's super talented and another really nice guy.
Very cool, man. That's a great story. And let's talk about Cinderella.
Uh-huh.
That gig, same thing. How'd you get connected with those guys, and any cool stories? Well,
Cinderella was a band that we opened for. It seemed like every tour we ever went out with Winger, somehow we'd end up with Cinderella. We were inseparable. And what the funniest, crazy thing is, because we used to kind of laugh. It's like, "Oh, you guys again." We were always doing stuff together. And, the 2 bands got along real well. But when I first moved to Nashville, I had bought a house a little bit out of town because I didn't have a lot of time to find a place. And I found this little place, but it was a bit out of town, about, 15 minutes out the 40 in this little new neighborhood. And it was fine for then. And I walked out the front door about the first week I was living there, and this car goes by and then hits reverse and goes back. It's Jeff LaBar. And he goes, "Dude, what are you doing here?" And I go, "I just moved into this house." He goes, "I live in that house." So me and Jeff lived across the street from each other. Like, it was insane. But
that's really random, all these guys that are connected down in Nashville.
Yeah, it's crazy. And but anyway, it was about 6-7 years ago. I was just getting on a cruise, actually, with this for fun band that I play with called the Big Rock Show. But Tom called me and he's like, "Hey, Cinderella's going out. We're doing a 2-month tour. And would you be interested in doing that?" And I said, "Yeah," So I said, "Look, I'm literally walking onto a cruise ship right now. Let me call you Monday when I get back." So I got back Monday morning and I unpacked and did all my stuff I had to do. And then I had to I knew I had to call Tom, but it was getting late in the afternoon. I was really hungry, so I told my wife, I go, hey, let's go out and have dinner, and then I'll give Tom a call. So we were going to go to this place at the mall downstairs, and we literally open up the doors to the mall, and here's Tom and his wife walking out of the mall, and he goes, hey, you're supposed to call me. I go, oh my God. This is insane.
Too nutty,
I go,
man.
dude, I was just going to go have dinner and then call you afterwards. And he goes, well, you know what this means, right? You're doing the tour. And I said, I know.
Wow.
So, but anyway, I was going to call him already to tell him I was doing it. But so we went out and did the 2 months with Cinderella, and it was just fantastic. And then, at the end, he had told me, hey, I'm going to finally release a solo record. And I'm thinking about putting together a new group of guys to do that, just because, I've done Cinderella a long time, and it would be fun just to, have a new thing to just do some of these songs, and it'll be for about 3 weeks with a possible 2 more weeks. Can you do that? And I said, sure. And, all of a sudden he just loved it. I mean, he liked having his own thing, and, he'd been doing the other thing for a long time. And
sure. So
it just morphed into, and pretty soon the promoters started taking it seriously, like, wow, this is kind of here to stay. And so that's what, we did up until last year. I was going on year 6, and I was like, hey, this was supposed to be for 8 weeks, and now 6th year. And, and it was amazing. So Tom is just such a talented guy and one of the sweetest guys I know. And, but I just, I wasn't getting the time to be recording and writing. And I had, when I joined Cinderella, I had just bought a house and built a recording studio, and I was going to start producing. And I literally all of a sudden ended up on the road. So I just finally decided it was time to kind of get back to doing a little bit more of that stuff. And, with Winger, I'm not really technically in the band anymore. They're just like, dude, anytime you want to play with us, so it's great. So I can record and do my stuff here, and then, look over the schedule and go, wow, they've got, this date and that date. And, or if it's any of the bigger ones, they'll call me sometimes and go, hey, can you do this one, this one, this one? Because, of course, there's more of us singing, and Kip doesn't have to switch to keyboards, and the guitar player switches to bass and all that. So it's really great,
That's really cool. So it's good that you got yourself. I cannot believe how much diversity and how many different and how incestuous. I don't mean that in a bad way, but how incestuous that the crowd is. That your group is. It's like one guy's in and out, and it's just it's so awesome.
Insane.
Yeah,
well, it's crazy. And I mean, even with John Roth, our guitar player, because he plays, of course, Reb's in White Snake, John's in Starship, and John with the Starship, he plays a lot. So we've had a sub, Donnie Smith, who's great for him, and then there's been several times where neither of them could do it. So like we just played a gig a month ago, and Howie Simon, who plays with Nelson, sat in with us, and because if John's not there, John sings a lot of the really high, strong parts, and I can't. Otherwise I could just cover it as a 4-piece like we used to. But a lot of the later songs have some stuff that I just can't sing that stuff. It's out of my range. So, we keep it a 5-piece, but a lot of fun.
Very cool, man. Hey, so you're originally from San Fran?
Yeah, I grew up right outside of San Francisco in Lafayette, and then in 7th grade moved to Santa Rosa up into the wine country.
That's north.
So technically, I mean, Santa Rosa is really my hometown, kind of.
What was your childhood like?
Oh, it was great. When I was young, living in Lafayette, I lived in this little place called Burton Valley Estates, and real cozy little thing in the hills there. But those years went by really super quick. I think I did play. I had already performed then. I was in 6th grade. I played for a talent show.
What were you playing?
Guitar. It was me, 2 guitar players, and a drummer. I actually have a picture of it. I had a Fender Duosonic, which is a small guitar, and it looked huge on me because I was the shortest kid in my class up until junior high. I went into a growth spurt, but I was teeny as a kid. And I think we played 2 songs that we had a mic and we were going to attempt to sing something, but the first thing I did was walk up to the mic and I got shocked so bad. So I stood probably 5 feet back from the microphone, and
wow.
I don't know. I don't remember what I was trying to sing anyway, but It was a Fender Champ amp with two of us plugged into it, and this guy Mitch Pleiss on drums. And funny.
That's wild that you remember all that. How did you get into music and like guitar, keys? When did that all unfold?
Yeah, it was. We had a piano in the house with the family, and I just started sitting at it playing. Anything I heard, I would just kind of sit at it and try and play. And pretty soon, my parents were like, "Man, he just hears stuff and plays it." And so they got me into lessons. And so I took some basic lessons as a kid, and then my cousin Kathy had married a guy named Joe McDonald, who ended up becoming
Country Joe McDonald.
Joe.
Holy shit!
So they moved in with us when I was in about 5th or 4th grade for 3/4 of a year, I think it was. And I remember they pulled up and they had an old panel truck with stuff. It was like Beverly Hillbillies. And I'm like, "Mom, who's that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's your cousin Kathy. Her and her guy are going to be moving in with us for a while." Well, Joe played guitar and he had an acoustic, and he'd sit around playing acoustic stuff, folk songs and stuff. And he also had a jug band he played in, and they actually played in our living room at one of my mom and dad's parties. But he wasn't into the electronic scene yet. And but of course, I was bored with piano lessons because I was real ADD as a kid. And so I was like, I want to play guitar like Uncle Joe. So he started, my parents got me a little Westbrook acoustic guitar, and he showed me some chords. And thankfully, never thought about the fact that I was left-handed. So he just showed me how to play guitar like everyone does. So I'm actually left-handed, but I play guitar like everyone else does, which I'm really happy about, because I would not want to have had to, you walk into a music store, you can't play any of the guitars if you're, you're left-handed. Yeah. So I'm really glad that I just learned to play it like everyone else,
Wow, that's amazing. So you've never, because that's how you learned, you've never felt like awkward at it. Like
No. Well, because it doesn't require much. It's just kind of wiggling your fingers. It's like playing piano, and so there wasn't a lot of things that need to move where you're feeling awkward. But so that was cool. And I actually I ended up on the cover of one of his records when I was a kid. Me and my dad are on the front of the Together album, where everybody's filing out, the wedding's filing out.
Dude, I gotta look that up.
Yeah, you'll see me, like, it's kind of the side of my face, and my dad's got his hand on my shoulder. My dad's got a beard and curly hair. It's funny.
That's really cool. Did you ever wind up doing anything with him?
I didn't, but we did talk. I kind of have always thought of him as being responsible for the fact that I got into guitar.
Yeah.
But over the years we all lost touch. He divorced my cousin. Matter of fact, the cover that I was on, he had already divorced her. That was his wedding to his new wife.
Okay.
So we had stayed friends and all that for a while. But then, of course, everyone gets busy, and my parents lost touch. And but then my parents heard that he was doing a record signing. It's probably in the 80s, and so they went and stood in line, and it just freaked him out. They got up to him, he looked up, and he's like, "Oh my God!" So that kind of. That at that time they had let him know that I had gone on to be successful in music, but I contacted him. It was probably about 8 or 10 years ago now, through Facebook. I finally found him and said, "Hey, remember me?" And I just said I just wanted to say thanks, because you're kind of what got me going in guitar, and so it was cool.
That's really cool, man. What a story! Holy shit!
Yeah. Well, it was it was amazing, because I did. By the time he got into the electronic stuff, my parents did take me to 3 different shows, a couple of shows at the Fillmore,
oh, wow.
Which was all in the psychedelic, and it was pretty crazy times. I mean, it was the 70s, and a lot of drugs and craziness, but my parents were with me. And then they took me to a thing called the Fantasy Festival, which was, I think even Hendrix played it, but Janis Joplin, I know, played it, and the Doors. And it was a 2-day festival up on Mount Tamalpais when I was about 8 or 9, and I'll never forget that. So I saw him play there too, and of course then he went on to play Woodstock, which by then I was just like, wow,
So your folks are really supportive of your music, and it sounded like they were pretty cool people in general.
Yeah, well, my dad was a college professor and a psychologist, so yeah, they were basically San Francisco hippies, kind of, not drugged out hippies or anything. But they were just, My dad was the head of the psych department for a college, so he's hanging with a lot of college kids and stuff,
Did you know? Do you know Alex Skolnick?
I don't. I know, of course, the name and all that, but yeah, no, I don't.
He's from San Fran, and both his parents were college professors. Funny enough.
Oh, that's funny. Wow.
Yeah, and like very well respect. I don't know what they did, but they were very in the elite college professor sort of level. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. So, what made you move to Nashville?
Well, Kip had called me in 2002 about going out. He called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Because Winger hadn't been a band at that point. We had been broken up for quite a while, and we didn't have a label. We didn't have management. We didn't have anything. We were just all kind of doing our own thing. I had gotten really heavily into writing TV stuff at that point, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "No, I'm just writing some TV stuff these days." And he's like, "Well, I just got a call from Poison. They're doing a tour with Cinderella, and they all said, hey, if Winger wants to put the original band back together, would you guys want to go out on the road?
Again with Cinderella."
But by then, I had been out of what was even the original band. By then, it was them with John Roth. That was the last incarnation. But they wanted the original guys. But we decided, hey, that's the first time when we went, let's try this as a 5-piece. This might be really cool, and especially vocally. I mean, we'll be super strong. So, but the problem was, I was in L.A., Kip was in New Mexico. Reb was in Pittsburgh, Johnny was in Memphis, and Rod was in Long Island. So We were like, how are we going to do this? And so our old road manager, Rick Fulner, called up and said, hey, why don't you guys come to Nashville? Your first gig's in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is 100 miles away. I've got a place to rehearse here. I could put most of you up at the house and just rehearse, jump on the bus, go 100 miles and start your tour. And we're like, wow, that makes sense. So that's what we did. 2 weeks later, we shipped all of our gear to Nashville and we rehearsed for 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, I was meeting all these people and they're like, oh, you're right. Let's write a song. I'm like, sure. When? And they're like, now or tomorrow. And I'm like, are you kidding? Great. So I was in with, the first 2 weeks I was there, I was just writing with all these people and I was like, man, this is amazing. And at that time, LA was dying as far as the 80s thing. And I just kind of was feeling like all on my own. I was just writing all this TV stuff by myself. And, of course, in Nashville, there was just, a huge amount of great singers and players. And I made the move, right after the tour. I said, you guys, I think I'm moving to Nashville. And it was funny because Kip was like, that's weird, dude. I was thinking I might do the same, so, and we did. I think 6 months apart, me and Kip moved here. So, and we only live like a mile and a half from each other. So it's cool.
That's great. Yeah. Well, the people there are so nice. Just in general, of course, all the musicians are so cool, but just in general, it's just a nice, warm place to live. People are very welcoming.
Fantastic. I'm really happy I made the move. I am still a California boy. I miss being by the ocean, but I get out there a lot and, so it's no biggie.
Very cool, man. Look, what are some of the obstacles? You mentioned earlier, 97 to 2000 was tough, but have there been any other obstacles or challenges that you've had to overcome periodically throughout this journey for you, either personally, music related, or business related?
Well, I think those were just my rough years. Because, little did I know. And I just kind of took it personally that all of a sudden I wasn't getting calls for tours and I wasn't really paying attention. I was so kind of wrapped up in because I had such a run of good luck, and all of a sudden it was like the carpet got yanked out from under me. And so, at first I was kind of a little anxious. Oh man, no work. But I took, I had some money saved up. I built a studio and I'd never learned how to record yet. And so I started, the first year I was trying to learn how to record, and thankfully I was starting to get good enough to get some of my songs into the TV thing. But then the second year I was running lower and lower on money and then getting into my credit cards and still nothing. And then I started kind of getting bummed out. And then I started getting kind of just angry and bitter and, all just a waste of time because first of all, it wasn't about me. It was it was the business, and it happens. And, but I wasn't prepared I didn't have any other options. I didn't know how to record yet. And, but thankfully I just kept with it. And back in those days, learning how to record, it was the computers, but none of the software talked to each other back then. Anytime you tried to put this with that, I just remember, trying to run Pro Tools, and then I'd hook up with this, IO box, and it wouldn't work. And each company was saying it was the other's fault. And so I was just spending hours on the phone with tech support, and just very frustrating for a guy that had just sat on tour buses staring out the window. So it was a rough couple of years. But like I say, it was towards the end of nearing 2000 when I got the Sabrina main title came out of the blue from my buddy Danny Lux. Who was just nice enough to call me and, give me that, which we can talk about later. But, and then Kip called about that tour. And then by then my recording was getting really good, and I was getting hired to do tons of songs. So everything just kind of took back off. It was what life does, if you just, it's, sometimes you feel like a salmon swimming upstream, and just, I was just fighting it the whole way. And finally, I'm just like, this is one of those periods of time, just ride it out and things will get going good again. And they, of course, did. And, it's remained good. And even if it hadn't, I learned a big lesson about just, don't get too wigged out too fast when things aren't going your way,
Yeah.
Just roll with it.
I have this expression. It's sometimes when we feel like we've dug ourselves a rut, we tend to dig harder. And I think sometimes the thing to do is just to put the shovel down.
Right. Absolutely.
But when you're in it, it's hard to recognize that.
Yeah, it is. That's a good lesson in life, is just to kind of step back. And, for me, the easiest way to do that, even if you don't have a lot of money, is get in your car and get the hell out of Dodge,
Yeah.
As long as you're in your environment, your daily thing, it's just, you can't, getting away and just, going to the beach and just, even if you just get like a $35 Motel 6 room or whatever, just get the heck away, and just, for 2 or 3 days even can really just be life-saving sometimes, just to clear your brain.
That's very good advice. If you could go back, Paul, and give your younger self advice, assuming you would have listened, what advice would you have liked to have given yourself, either career-wise, personal, and anything like that?
Become a truck driver. I don't know. As things have turned out, I kind of just rolled with the punches all the way along. And, I just kind of rolled with life my whole life. And I never, unlike all my friends that were like, man, I wanted to be in Kiss, I wanted to be a rock star. It never even crossed my mind I could have done music for a living. It was just, I remember just one day, I kind of went from my little bands and my local bands. And then I was in high school and I started moving to LA and, just doing stuff. And I just, and then I started playing in these top 40 bands, and all of a sudden, I was playing down in San Francisco in the Embarcadero Center. And then we started traveling up to Alaska and then New Mexico. And I remember one day going, and I was making really good money. And I was playing with all these older guys and bands. I was going, wow, is this what I do? That was the first time it ever even dawned on me, I might actually be able to make a living doing this, and I wasn't really good at anything else. I tried to be a dishwasher one day and I quit halfway through the day, and, I was a janitor for a week, and, things, as you're a kid, you take any little odd job you can get. But, it just kind of found me, I think, and I just rolled with it, and here I am.
One of the things that you talked about a couple of times was your licensing. And I'm coming out to the business world, and I was looking at music today. My mind is, if someone's going to get into music, the thing to do is to get into licensing, because that's the only way to make, recurring money, mailbox money.
Right. Well, unless you're the artist and you can get out and sell product and sing and touring, there's still some money to be made. But boy, the song thing is rough now, especially if you're like a writer in Nashville with a publishing deal trying to place a song. It's gotten very, very tough. And, what you make per song anymore. I mean, these people are like, I want to have a publishing deal. I want to have, and they don't understand, even if somebody was to give you an advance on a publishing deal anymore, which they're barely giving anything, if anything, it's all money that you're going to pay back the second you have any kind of song. And most people, they don't get the single, so you get a cut on a record 3 years down the road. And, these days you would be lucky to make, 10 or 20 or 30,000 on a publishing deal. So you finally get a song on a record and boom, bye. There goes the record company's going to take their money back. So I don't know.
Whereas with licensing, you get like Bruno, you get every time it runs, you get a check mark. You get a little piece, and it adds up.
Yeah,
year in, year out.
And I've done it various ways with these companies I write for. Some of them they take the publishing and I keep the writer, but they pay me up front for the production.
Okay.
So I'm paid first off, but then I lose a little bit on the back end. But these companies are placing them left and right for me. Yeah. So would I give them a hit? No. And in my course of writing, sometimes I'll just be writing something, and I never try and write, like a hit or something. But sometimes you go, wow, that's a great song. I'll put it aside and write another one for them if I'm giving the publishing away.
Yeah.
If I feel like it's a really, really, and it doesn't happen often. I'm not, I don't know. I let most of my stuff go because, I'd rather it go out there and actually make money, which, over the course of 22 years of writing, these guys place my stuff a lot. And
yeah.
So I'd rather, do that than sit in a closet because I'm so precious about my little songs. And it's like, no, I think this is a hit. Good luck. It's
for who, when, and how.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I've learned that I've had, because everybody, I know when you write a song, especially when you write one that your brain thinks is great, it's real exciting and fun. But I've learned through my best friends that are my biggest critics, I can write something that I just think this is the one. Woohoo, I did it. And I can play it for 5 of my friends and maybe 3 of them will think it's amazing and 2 of them will go, I don't get it. It's very speculative, what a hit is it's luck and timing like everything else in the music business,
Yeah. On the other side, you have these basically assets. It's like having rental properties almost out there and, you're getting rented every month or every week and you're, as often as possible.
Too. And I've learned, some of the very first songs that I did with TV and I should mention somebody else because he is really responsible for everything I've done in TV, which is Mark Ferrari, who played in Keel. Me and Mark ran into each other and, I was always thinking, man, it'd be fun to have a song on TV. And, this is like 22 years ago or something. I ran into him and I'm like, Mark, how have you been? We hadn't seen each other. And he's like, man, he was in that movie, not Bill and Ted, but, or was it Bill and Ted? The one that Alice Cooper was in and had the band. He was in Alice's band in the movie. I'm forgetting the name of the movie. I shouldn't. It's a comedy thing with the 2 guys. But and he started asking the directors, "How do you guys get this music you're playing?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just temp music. The supervisors will be putting stuff in." He goes, "Well, how do I get my songs in there?" And they're like, "Well, it's through music supervisors." So he thought, "Okay, well, I'm going to start trying to do that." Of course, getting to music supervisors, especially these days, is like getting to the president.
Sure.
They're like everybody's coming at them from every angle with songs. But the other thing is, they can't just take a song. It's got to be cleared. There's a lot of contracts and a lot of stuff because, they put a song in something, then somebody else comes out of the woodwork and goes, "Hey, I wrote that." It can be a huge amount of money they get sued for. So all the songs I do, we sign a lot of contracts on all this stuff. But Mark, he got some songs in the first year. And by the time I ran into him, he's like, "Dude, I've had about 30 songs in movies and stuff." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Hey, we should write something." So me and him wrote this song called "Have a Drink on Me." And it's kind of like it's kind of Leonard Skinner-y. And we got Mark Torian from the Bullet Boys sang on it. And to this day, that song's placed a lot of times. And as has some of my other ones. And sometimes it's the weirdest songs. Like we wrote this one song called "Depths of My Soul," and we wrote it with the guy who actually did at the time was scoring some of the Steven Seagal movies. He was a friend, and the 3 of us wrote this song called "Depths of My Soul," and it basically sounds like "Stormy Monday." It's kind of like that kind of a bluesy type thing. And I was thinking, that thing for whatever reason has placed so many times. I'd probably be shocked if I knew how much money I'd pulled in on that.
And that's one of 3, and that's a third.
Yeah,
because you got 2 other guys.
And it just placed. It's all great. Over my statements. As was the song that was in Bruno. That song is probably one of my biggest placing songs. It's called "Sexing Me." And so, yeah, it's actually like an NSYNC sound alike.
Right.
Back in the day, I had to write a lot of pop stuff. They always wanted stuff that sounded like Britney Spears or NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. So I program a lot and do, everything they throw at me is kind of like just a puzzle to figure out, but I also they asked me to do a lot of Motown, a lot of blues, a lot of, it's great. And of course rock, but it's fun to just get to do all the different styles of stuff,
Very cool. I know a number of guys in Nashville that's their sole source of income is licensing.
Yeah.
It's very smart. I couldn't see doing anything else, or I couldn't see not adding that to your putting that as another arrow in your quiver as a musician nowadays. It would make no sense not to,
Right.
Hey, let's talk gear for a few minutes. Guitar wise, what's like your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars might round out your top three?
Well, that's actually a funny question because it just took a huge change. I've recently been clearing out my life of everything. I just sold off some of my old winger jackets from the tours, and it's that time. Clear. Yeah. I don't have kids. I don't have any, there's no one to anything that's been sitting in closets, like my jackets, they're cool, and of course I'm hanging on to the few that I really love, but all my jackets where I looked like a walking Christmas tree. The only thing they're good for anymore is every 5 years I'll have friends over and they'll go, "Hey, do you have any of those old jackets?" And I'll pull them out and we'll all laugh for 2 minutes and then they go back in the closet. Yeah. So I finally just sold them off, and so I have some good new homes, and everybody's been writing me, "Oh my God, I love having this jacket." So it's great. I'd rather it be out there with somebody that's really getting some enjoyment out of it. So I was going through my guitars, trying to figure out, of course I know what my basic go-to guitars are, but I had this Strat that I had during the winger days. I went to Fender because I wanted a Strat that was a little heavier, and they said, "Hey, yeah," because I was used to playing Les Pauls and stuff, and it was really actually a stupid idea because the Strat's supposed to be light and it's part of its sound. But so I went and I had them build me. They ended up building me a custom Strat, and because I went to the factory, and at that time they had a run of custom necks. Which this one neck I have, and I won't bore the audience with this, but it's a bird's eye maple and a ebony fingerboard, which is unusual for them. Yeah. They had a custom run of 50, and it's the most beautiful neck. They said, "Hey, we can put one of these on there," and I'm like, "Oh my God!" And I wasn't trying to get a free guitar because I was already endorsed by Ibanez. So I just said, "Look, I'll pay for this guitar." So long story short, they built it twice. There was something wrong with it when they sent it to me. And so by the end, they just said, "Hey, are you ever going to play this thing out live?" And I said, "Well, of course." And they said, "Here, it's yours. You don't owe us." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And so wow. Anyway, I played a bit, and I was recording with it a little bit. And of course, then tours. And so I was using more of the Ibanez stuff on the tours, and it just kind of got put away. And over the years, I just never really have used it that much. And so I pulled it out. I was like, "Oh yeah, my Strat." And I pulled it out and I started playing it about 5 months ago, and it didn't sound good. I was like, "What is wrong with this thing?" And then, of course, pretty soon I'm looking, and the strings were just probably 30 years old and crusty and corroded. And I realized they were really heavy. It was a heavy gauge on there. And I'm like, gosh, this thing just not only does it not sound good, it doesn't even sound like a Strat. So meanwhile, I go to Guitar Center and I'm playing around some guitars, and all of a sudden I pick up this one and I'm like, oh my God, that's what a Strat's supposed to sound like. And I play it and play it and play it. And I started playing a ton of other ones. They had a ton of them down there. And I kept going back to this one. And I'm like, oh my God, am I buying another guitar? So I ended up buying the Strat, and I just started loving it. And so meanwhile, I pulled out the other one, and I was going, oh my God, these strings, so I pulled off the strings, cleaned up the guitar and the neck, put lighter gauge on it, and adjusted them. I had the pickups right up against the strings, which you're not supposed to do with a Strat. And I got it all working, and I'm like, and ended up really liking it. And so It got me on this Strat thing. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I love Strats with maple necks. So now I went and bought one that has, a humbucker in the back. Okay. And now I'm in this whole thing of switching out pickups, and DiMarzio pickups was just nice enough to give me an endorsement because I absolutely love some of the new pickups that I put in my one guitar, which was an Area 58 and a Area 61 and a Steve Lukather's pickup, the Transition. amazing Ibanez pickups. So anyway, so I'm switching all my pickups in my Strats now, and I'm going to probably be playing mostly Strats in these upcoming shows. I'm just really having fun with them.
That's great. Have a
and of course, I still do love all my old Les Pauls, and
What amps are you usually playing through?
Well, I'm, Marshalls, and I just sold an Egnator Rebel 30, and the only amps I have left in my studio are an old some 70s, two Marshalls, and cabinets that my friend has given me to decide what to do with them, because he just quit music 25 years ago. And then I've got a Marshall 900, and then I have a PV, not Rebel 30, a Classic 30, little 112 amp, which I just absolutely love.
Great. I have a PV Delta Blues. It's a 115 combo. Oh my God. I love it.
They make some of their, of course it's got like 7 tubes in it. So it's a real warm, and matter of fact, my buddy was at my house about 2 months ago, and I was playing some stuff through it. He goes, God, that thing sounds amazing. Yeah. And now he owns one. He went out and got. So
very cool, man. Players, are there any players who influence your playing that people would be surprised to hear, both on keys and on guitar?
Well, guitar, and I've said this in probably a lot of interviews, but I kind of grew up first modeling B.B. King, which I heard him. My dad and me were buying a used refrigerator, and I heard this music playing, and I was like, wow, the guy just sings, and then there's some guitar, and then he sings, and there's another little solo. And I finally asked the guy that my dad was talking, I go, hey, do you know who this music is? And he goes, yeah, it's a record here. And he comes walking over, and I'm like, B.B. King. And that was kind of life-changing for me. It just spoke to me right off the bat. I think the soulfulness of it, and I guess that was already in me or something, because man, I just gravitated toward it, and that's why later on, some of the guitar players I loved were real melodic and soulful, like Neil Schon or Steve Lukather, and granted they can shred too, but they also, they can play some real soulful, nice stuff too. So yeah, those guys. Keyboard wise. God, I don't know. I never was the guy that was into the technical stuff. I appreciate keyboardists that can kind of just fill in the band and just put parts that aren't overbearing or too much stuff, and but I never really had a guy that I followed keyboard wise. Gotcha.
Desert Island Discs. Top 3 in no particular. Maybe make it easy. No particular order, and knowing this could change tomorrow. So what's your knee jerk reaction? Top 3 Desert Island discs.
Oh boy, it would. And I don't know the specific ones, but I would probably make sure I had a Beatles disc.
Like every single person in your age bracket picks Beatles. Everybody.
Well, it's astonishing the body of work those guys wrote, and the variety, and just their melodies are timeless, And I would say that even if I didn't like the band, I would just go, those guys deserve to have be on top of it's astonishing that when you think of everything from Strawberry Fields and I don't know, it's just like. God, I get freaked out. Like I went and saw Paul McCartney about 4 years ago, and I think I relived my life during that show. It was just incredible. I mean, so that, I don't know. I honestly, I'd probably have a Journey record, and I would probably have an Aerosmith record.
Which one? Old Aerosmith or 80s Aerosmith? Or 90s Aerosmith?
Like I said, it's been so long since I don't remember what stuff's on what anymore, because it's been so long since I've really, looked at CD, but just always been a giant Aerosmith fan. Love the fact that they're still out playing and still sounding as good as they are. I mean, literally the last 2 times I've seen them, which is in probably the last 5 years, I just sat there feeling like, why did any of the rest of us play live? I mean, these guys are just so cool and so much better, and their songs are incredible. Anyway, it's awesome. And now I got a buddy playing, and my friend Buck Johnson plays keyboards for him now. I'm so happy for him, and just what a cool gig.
Very cool, man. Do you remember the first album you bought?
Gosh.
Or maybe got given to you even?
Well, Sgt. Pepper, I remember getting given to me on my 8th birthday by my friend George McCoy.
God, you've got a great memory.
Well, my childhood, I just that little neighborhood, we were a very close, those friends I still am in touch with some of them. He's one guy I have not been able to find, but a lot of my other friends from those days were still buddies. But yeah, I remember getting given that record and just going, wow, look at what they're wearing, and just it was such a different record, and I wasn't sure what I thought of it even for a while, but of course later on grew to think, wow, man, that's pretty amazing stuff. And I know that Creedence Clearwater also was some of those records I really liked, and used to just jam along to all the time. And I remember actually playing Down on the Corner all the time, because it's dun 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 dun, and I was like. And I remember one day I went to buy a guitar. I went to this place called Scats and Bag Music in Oakland. And I remember thinking, because I was playing that bass part, I thought, maybe I'm a bass player. So I went to this music store going, I'm either going to get a precision bass or a Strat, and I just went and played a bunch of stuff. And I think it was the first time I ever really got to, because I thought basses were really cool. I don't know why, but it was the first time I sat and really tried to play one for a long time. And it felt very big on me because I was so small, and I just was like, maybe this isn't me. And I was already getting where I was okay on guitar, so I ended up getting a wood finish Strat.
Do you still have it?
I don't. I sold that, and I sold all my old guitars. I'm so bummed that I don't have that or the Duosonic, or like all of us, we've sold off a lot of things, or even some of the ones I do have from when I was young, like my SG Custom. I completely messed it up and filled in the middle pickup and painted it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm like, yikes. So, but it's all right.
Hey, this is a tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
Oh my God. That I'm happy, that can be a task sometimes. I think it's always an ongoing thing, but I think if, that's it. I mean, I'm just really glad to be happy. And I also feel like I'm a good guy. I mean, I probably have my days like everybody else, but generally the feedback I get back from people is like, man, you're such a nice guy. So, I'm sure that now I'll be getting all these emails like, what are you talking about, dude? You're an asshole.
You're an asshole. How about the flip side, man? If there's one thing you could change about yourself, what would it be?
My hair.
Dude, how can you tell me you're changing your hair? Come on, man. You have no right to tell a bald guy you're going to change your hair.
I have that wild hair that just always goes everywhere it wants to. And, everyone's always explaining how they could give me a haircut that would make it look way better. And it always still just curls up and looks the same no matter what you do to it. But no, if I could change anything, God, I don't know. Really nothing, I mean, yeah. I think over the years, you see some of your faults over the years, and you just kind of learn from everything you do. And I've learned to be kind of a little quieter and kind of spend more time listening than, I used to be so hyper. I would just kind of talk all the time and talk over everybody. And, I feel like I'm talking a lot now, but I am doing an interview.
It's your interview, man.
Okay.
No, you're good. Tell me something about yourself that people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
I guess here's one. I call myself like the Birdman of Tyne Boulevard. I've just gotten into birds over the last, I've got the feeders out in the back. As a matter of fact, my big triumph over this last month is I finally got yellow finches coming to my yard now. So
awesome.
I tried to do that like a couple times, and it just never worked. Like they just never would show up. And so I found this bright yellow one, and I put it in 2 different spots, and all of a sudden, about 2 weeks ago, I'm like, oh my God, there's one, and now I've got like 3 or 4 of them that are showing up every day, and that's stupid fun stuff. Later in life, it's like drink your coffee and watch your birds. It's like that's what happened to him.
I don't think that's. I think that's like really relaxing.
Yeah,
I don't think
fun,
it's
man.
stupid. Yeah,
got my binoculars, and then we get
I see your binoculars right there, man. They're right behind you.
Yeah. It's just really cool, It's just I've got all the red cardinals, and I've got these woodpeckers that are coming in a lot, and it's just it's really fun,
dude. That's awesome, man.
And actually, I have a rabbit now that's hanging out in my backyard who completely is not afraid of me. I mean, today I walked out, and I literally was probably about 8 feet from him, and he just kind of watches me for a sec, and then he goes back to eating his grass. We become buddies, I guess. So it's cool.
Do you put out food for the rabbit?
I don't. He just eats the grass.
That's really cool, man.
He might eat some of the sunflower seeds that the birds leave around too. I don't know.
Very cool. Where are you, in Franklin or Spring Hill or something?
I'm basically right in the middle of Brentwood, Green Hills, and Nashville. I'm smack in the middle of everything. So
I know exactly where that is, man. I stayed in Brentwood when I was one time when I was in Nashville.
I live actually down the street from Steve Cropper, who wrote "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay."
Yep. Happiest moment or time in your life?
Oh boy, there's been a lot of those. You know what? I could easily tell you what's like the greatest period of like I bought, like, when you think back to all the fun things you ever did or got, and like I bought a Honda Mini Trail when I was in like 6th grade. I'd wanted it for a year, and I finally saved up and got this Honda Mini Trail, and to this day, I probably have never had more fun with anything. Later in life, you go, oh man, I really want this car, and you get it, and and a month later, you're like, yeah, it's okay. But I never quit. Even in my mind now, that thing is still like I had for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, me and my buddies all got mini bikes, and we were all. And I was thinking, wow, I'm coolest. I've got the Honda Mini Trail, until my one friend Kevin Goatley got a Yamaha Mini Enduro, and then he had by far the coolest mini bike thing, But anyway, we all had a blast on those things, and it's one of my fondest memories of my young life.
Very cool, man. Most important person in your life?
Oh gosh, I mean, my wife at this point. It changes because, growing up, of course, it's your parents, but both my parents have passed away. But my wife at this point.
How long have you been together?
14 years.
Oh, congratulations, man. Good for you. Awesome.
Been married for 7, but
that doesn't count. I never count my marriage. I mean, I never, to me, that's like, I always look at the date we hooked, we started. I don't know why. I don't ever pay attention to that marriage date. I mean, it's another anniversary, but to me, it counts like when you started, when you started hanging out.
Yeah.
Do you have any non-musical superpowers?
No. No, but I definitely have some interests and hobbies. I'm massively into mountain biking, and I'm really into photography too. Although, unfortunately, and it's funny because just this week, in part I'm getting rid of stuff. I've pulled out all my cameras, which I still have a bunch of great old cameras. But I think I am going to go finally invest in a nice SLR digital. Because everybody's always like, dude, what kind of camera are you? Because I still
take film.
I take everything with my phone, but everybody's always like, that's a phone, But I mean, I studied photography for 3 years. I went 2 years at UCLA in a place called the Learning Tree. So I got massively into it for a while, and I used to have a lot of equipment. I still have, I've got 2 really nice Nikons. I've got an N90 and I've got an F3 and I've got a Hasselblad 500 medium format. But of course, with an iPhone, you're not getting great quality, but I have the eye, I guess. So people are always freaking out about my pictures every time I post stuff. But I want to go get something again where I can start shooting and get some real crystal clear shots.
What are you going to do? Because I love photography, but I have an SLR, but I have older SLRs, probably the same as you, that have film. They're not they're not worth anything, are they?
Anything. That's why I was just going through, because I was going to sell some of them, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I might as well just, I have them in a little shelf where they kind of look cool. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I could stomach selling them,
for $45 or something like that. Yeah, that's what
and same with my lenses. I mean, because they don't fit the new. And I'm like, and I've got some really nice Nikon lenses. So I was just like, man, I guess I'm just going to, hang on to them, and they'll be something nice to look at.
Yeah, I know. There's no value to them. I've looked recently because I'm same situation.
Or maybe before I die, they'll come back and start, it'll be the Gibson thing where like, oh, it's a 1980s, Nikon F3 is worth, 150,000 or, it's unbelievable to me that people are, they're paying $300,000 for an old Les Paul. I mean,
crazy.
I get that as something gets older, it could be worth a little more, but not numbers like that. I just don't understand how stuff like that happens, but.
Well, not when you can. Not there's so many boutique, really good builders, and even you can get a custom reissue. It's not, it's a lot more reasonable than that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just crazy, man. Biggest business or personal win?
Oh boy. Well, I would have to say Sabrina the Teenage Witch main title, because that song took me 3 days to write and to get accepted. And I lived off it for 10 years. So, I mean, that's,
it's a great ROI.
My buddy, Danny Lux, basically he's a huge TV composer in LA. And Danny had called me one day and said, dude, they want a new main title for Sabrina. He had written the original one for the first years of the show. And he said, I don't have time to do this. I'm swamped right now. He goes, if you want to do it, I'll split it with you. And so I said, well, of course, and so I had no idea the amount of money it would end up bringing in over the course of years, but I got it. And it was funny too, because when Sabrina, who is Melissa Joan Hart, her mother was the executive producer of the show, Paula Joan Hart. And so she called me and said, yeah, I want something that sounds like The Sopranos. And I was like, for Sabrina? I go, okay. She goes, yeah, I like the pulsy synthy thing. And so I wrote one and I sent it to her, and she was like, wow, let me live with this. I like the direction of this. We might make some changes. So meanwhile, Viacom and Warner Brothers call me and they're like, no, completely wrong. We're cutting pictures to a psychedelic 60s thing. We want something that sounds more Beatlesy and reverse and back, psychedelic, and I said, all right. So I start working on that, and she calls me. She's like, stop. That's not at all what I want. So finally we got them all on the phone, and they all got together and they sent me some main titles that they all liked. And one of them, funny enough, was Seventh Heaven, that show Seventh Heaven. And a lot of people don't know this, but Steve Plunkett, the singer of Autograph, wrote that.
Oh, wow.
And Steve lived down the street from me at the time, weirdly enough. So I was like, wow, that's a weird coincidence. But anyway, they were all basically kind of pop songs. And so I said, these are kind of just pop songs, you guys. And they're like, and so she said, yeah, just make it a little edgier, rock it out a little bit, which I thought, well, okay, that's going to be easy. So I wrote that song that's on there, and she called me back. I got a singer on it the next morning, and the next night I got a mix of it and sent it. And she called me and just said, oh my God, I love this. Everyone's coming in to hear it. I'll be back with you in 30 minutes. And she called back and just said, bullseye, you've got a main title. Everyone absolutely loves this. And it was funny. She said, make it 5 seconds longer. I don't care how you do it. So I put this little fairy dust noise at the very beginning, and then we extended the drum fill in the middle, like a couple beats, and then I fairy dust noise out, sent it to her, and she's like, that's it. It's done. So, but it was about 6 months later, I was in a coffee shop on Sunset Boulevard, and in comes Melissa Joan Hart. And I'm like, oh my God, I was all excited. I thought, I'm going to run up and tell her, hey, I wrote your new main title. But then she sat down at a table with these two men, and they instantly were in a very heavy conversation. And as I was sitting there thinking about it, I thought, oh my God, maybe I shouldn't, because if you ever see the show at the beginning, she has to dance all around to the song. And I thought, it's quite possible she hates that song because she had to dance, So I thought, God, that would be awful. Hey, I wrote your main title. And she's like, oh, I hate it, because it wasn't her decision at all. Her mom and Viacom and Warner Brothers made the decision. So it's better off I never went and heard what she thought about it.
That's funny, man. That's a great story, man. Any bad habits?
No, I really, don't. I mean, I don't do drugs, and you know, if I maybe every once in a while I drink too much sake, but
yeah,
I love sake, but no, I don't think I have any bad habits.
3 more questions, man, and I really appreciate your time. Toughest decision you've ever had to make, or hardest thing you've ever had to do?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. You know, there's probably been, this is kind of personal, but the girlfriend that I had before this, we were amazing friends, and we just had reached this point where I wanted to do this and she wanted to do that, and we, I think we both were just like, we both thought the world of each other, but it was just like, man, let's not complicate matters and go both pursue and get what we wanted, and we both have, and still great friends, but that was a very, very tough time.
Sure. Yeah, to end a relationship for sure, man. This one's a tough one because you may not remember it. Best advice you've ever been given, if you remember it, and who gave it to you?
Well, my dad, you always have that one dad thing, and my dad didn't give me a lot of advice. He's always like, hey, you got a good head on your shoulders, go do your thing. But I remember, I was kind of thinking, man, I don't know if it was before I'd kind of found any success. He just said, hey, there's always room for one more good one. I don't know why that one line.
That's my great.
He always just was, I called it the world according to Larry. My dad kind of, was always, he would hold court at the dinner table or whatever. And including when my friends were there, my dad loved nothing more than to have an audience. And he would just kind of explain the world to everyone, fortunately I grew to find later on in life that it was okay if I ever had my own opinion on some stuff too. But,
That's cool. There's always room for one more good one. I wrote that down. I like that. And man, the last question, Paul, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this has been deliberate or intentional, and how much has just been a natural fact of aging?
That's funny because me and somebody were just talking about I think it was actually Kip, people don't change. Yeah. I don't think there has been any change despite, sometimes you think, man, I'm going to be this, or I'm going to do that, or, and then all of a sudden you're back doing what comes, naturally to you, so, I don't think there's been any,
Fair enough, man. Hey, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, man. I really enjoyed this. And,
a lot of fun.
Where can people, when you're out touring with Kip, where is that posted?
And just look up Winger tour dates. I despite the fact that I have been kind of on and off with the shows, I told them that, because I've been kind of, due to all this house construction, as I told you earlier, I had a house involved in the California fires. So I've been kind of absent from doing any playing for a bit now. So I told Kip, hey man, towards the end of the year, count me in on stuff. So I'll probably be playing a majority of the shows. Whenever we see Reb get off the road with Whitesnake, we're going to be probably starting to ramp up, trying to get some stuff booked and go play some shows together again.
Man, that's awesome. So everybody,
by the way, if anybody's out there, to go check out Rebby playing with Whitesnake, or of course John Roth, with the Starship. Or Kip's, we haven't talked about Kip at all with his whole classical thing, which has been massively successful. And he's writing a musical called Get Jack that is just unbelievable. Kip is a scary, talented guy.
I hear that. You know who told me that? Do you know, I'm sure you know Joe Glazer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Joe was telling me how amazing some of the stuff he's got going on is.
It's, Kip, I had asked him to hear some of the stuff, and he's like, typical Kip voice. Whenever any of us in the band do mimic Kip, we have to do it like he does it, because he's got this kind of monotone thing he does, talks like this. And so he goes, I'll bring it, but you're going to be bored. So I said, no, I don't care, because me and him, we were going to go, we had an 8-hour drive to a show to meet the band. And so I was blown away. That's when it was about 80% done. And, and he had mopped in all the dialogue and the singing. And, I was freaked out how good it is. I mean, there's classical stuff in there. There's stuff that sounds like Queen. There's stuff that sounds like Irish music. I mean, he is just a scary talented guy. So I'm looking forward to that. I know they've just got a big time producer or director involved in it now, and they're in the process of re-editing. Of course, every time they edit what they call the book, which is just the words of it, he has to go back and change an entire score. So they're literally killing him. He's putting in massive hours with it, but I think down the road, it's going to become, it's called Get Jack. It's about all the women that Jack the Ripper killed, and it's them coming back to tell their story. And it's
wow,
really,
that's pretty
it's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty sharp concept.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, man, we'll look out for that. And everybody, check out Paul Taylor if you see him with Winger. And do you have a website?
I did, and I took it down. I just, I never really kept up with it. And but maybe when I come back out with whatever life brings me for this next upcoming year, when I kind of get rolling again with music and quit being a carpenter and a house guy, hopefully in the next couple of months I can refocus back into the whole music thing here. And, we'll see. I'm not even sure what's going to happen, but, probably like usual, I'll surface somewhere.
Well, awesome, man.
Hopefully.
keep us posted, and we'll put it on our website as well.
I will, Craig. Thanks so much. Appreciate you, contacting me to do this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Paul.
Guys.
Thanks again to Paul Taylor for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get on our newsletter right now. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.